My special guest today is Mr. Richard Boss, also known as Mayor Boss. Richard, welcome, and I appreciate your time today. How are you?
Good, Bob. Thank you.
Richard, I know that you have you and your wife, Kim, are both two very valuable people in Alamogordo for a variety of reasons. I know that you are an accountant. She is an enrolled agent and works with accounting. And you've owned some businesses in town before, and you also happen to be the mayor. So I would think that you have a lot of challenging things going on with the city right now.
We do. We absolutely do. And, you know, speaking of my wife, she has more experience than I have. She's got about 37 years of experience now to my probably 30 years. But in any case, yeah, between the two of us, we've seen a lot of things. One of the main things we've got going on, we're having some budget problems now, of course, and I think everybody's aware of that. And that's because our businesses that are not open, that are not generating New Mexico gross receipts tax, has affected the city dramatically. We've had to balance our budget for the upcoming fiscal year. We've had to reduce our budget by about 25%. We've had to lay off people. We don't anticipate opening, well, we're not going to open the pool at this point, nor the rec center, nor the senior center. All of those things that we're just unable to do that. Part of that is because of the social distancing, of course, and the requirements that we have that the governor has put on us. But yeah, we have a lot going on.
Okay, Richard, would you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I was born in Portland, Oregon, and we moved here in 1955. My father was in an accident that broke his back, and he was in a body cast for over a year, and his doctor told him we needed to come out here, and he needed to get to a warmer and climate and less moisture. And he had a younger brother out here, so we moved out here, my dad, my mom, and my younger sister and younger brother. And I've gone all through school here from the 3rd grade. I went to high school. I went to Oregon school. I went to Chaparral. I graduated in Mexico, graduated in Alamogordo, class of 65. Went to NMSU-A and have an associate's degree in arts. And I went on to, this was over quite a period. I was working during most of this time, and I got a long, long list of jobs that I've done. But anyway, I graduated from New Mexico State University with a bachelor's degree with an emphasis in accounting. Okay. And I've had several businesses. That's right. I've worked in town as a gas station attendant. I delivered newspapers. When Gibson's was open, I was a sporting goods clerk. I've been an engineer's aide. I've been worked at Holloman Air Force Base in White Sands Missile Range, and I was a photo lab technician there. I taught classes. I taught basic accounting at NMSU-A for a couple of semesters, and while I was starting my accounting practice, I had an accounting practice for a number of years. And I retired from that and decided I wanted to be a building contractor. So I got a contractor's license, and a friend of mine, Steve Landers, who is still in town, we had Landers Boss Construction, and I think we built around 20 some odd houses in Alamogordo. And then I retired again. I've retired twice. And anyway, now I'm wound up being the mayor. So and when I retire from this, I guarantee you it will be my last job.
Isn't that what you said after the first retirement?
Pardon me?
Isn't that what you said after the first retirement?
Yeah, I guess that's probably right, Bob. Thank you for pointing that out.
No problem. Oh, Richard, let's talk a little bit about what's going on with the businesses and the economy in Alamogordo.
We've got a lot of problems right now. We've got obviously our small businesses and larger businesses too, because of all the restrictions that have been put on us from the coronavirus. It's bad. And I had a call this very morning from a lady, and she owns a hairdressing salon, a beauty salon. She has a number of employees. She's very, very concerned about what's going on. She was ready to open up. She's got all the equipment. She's got the thermometers. She's got the masks. She's got everything. and she's desperate. And I explained to her that there was really not much I could do about it, and where she should direct her complaints and questions to the governor. But this is typical across our community. We've got small businesses that just, this has gone on too long. The thing is, in Alamogordo, in my opinion, we've got, we don't have a situation like a lot of communities where we've got an airport that's international. We've got people coming from all over the country, all over the world. We don't have interstate highways going through here. We've had very, very few coronavirus cases. And right in Alamogordo, the number is under 10, and it goes back and forth because they reclassified some of the people that they had down in the prison by Chaparral that they were counting in Otero County. They were attributing that to the city of Alamogordo, and that's been a real mess. But I know it's under 10 in Alamogordo, and I think it's like 3 or 4. And that's all the cases we've had in Alamogordo.
Richard, can you explain to me why liquor stores have to be closed, but you can still go buy your liquor at a grocery store?
I cannot explain that to you. That would not be a question for me, but it's a question that I do have. It's that same person, whether they're in Walmart buying liquor or buying clothing for that matter. Would it be different if they were in another store, as long as they had all the same restrictions and all the things that they were supposed to do in the store of pennies or dollar boots and jeans, or one of those stores buying their clothing instead of buying it at Walmart? I can't answer the question why they can't do that. And I'm not down on the bigger stores. We've been very thankful that we've had them, and they have created some jobs in the community and some of the stores and across the country because of their increased activity, because the small businesses can't work. But I can't understand why all the restrictions put on us are for everybody, and they don't apply to everybody. We are unique in a lot of aspects, and I can't understand why our governor won't consider that. And it's not just Alamogordo. There's other communities that are in that same situation. The likelihood, and I know this is guessing, but the likelihood of getting the coronavirus in Alamogordo compared to New York City at any place or any store is probably not even measurable, hardly on a calculator.
Richard, did you watch the governor's press conference yesterday?
I did watch it.
Tell me your thoughts on it.
I was very disappointed in the fact that the restrictions they didn't allow more businesses to open up. I figured that they would, and Bob, I'm to a point, and I'm gonna, if you'll bear with me, I want to make a comment, but I want to make sure I say it right, because I'm speaking. There's times I'm speaking today as mayor of the city of Alamogordo, and times I'm speaking as Richard Boss, private citizen of Alamogordo. But and let me this is something, this kind of
Sure.
a statement I'd like to make. I was very disappointed yesterday with our Governor Michelle Grisham's news conference. I was completely surprised that more businesses were not allowed to open. This morning, I had a call from a beauty salon owner that has been open in Alamogordo for a long time, as I remember. She employs several people. She had everything in place in her salon to open in a secure way under all safety guidelines. She is devastated and at her wits' end as to how to move forward at this time. She speaks for many in this same position that have contacted me. I've had so many calls of people saying, when are you going to open it? There's been so much confusion, people thinking that myself as mayor have the authority to go out and open up businesses. I don't have that authority, nor does the commission, nor the city manager. There's nobody in this community that has authority over the governor. She's the only one that can open our businesses up. I have nothing to do with that. Anyway.
Hey, Richard, I got a question for you. Have you or anybody on the city commission sent any kind of communication to the governor?
We have. I requested a letter, and we had a special meeting to get the permission of the commission, permission from the commission to send a letter to our governor requesting that that she lessen some of the restrictions on Alamogordo because of our unique situation. We've had no response to that at this time.
So as mayor and commissioners of Alamogordo, you sent a formal letter to the governor and she has not responded in any way?
a letter above my signature. Yes, we did.
Okay. Tell me,
Can I say just a little bit more
yeah, sure,
about the conclusion that I've come to?
sure.
Okay, I've come to the sad conclusion that our governor is not analyzing the facts surrounding the virus in Otero County. The city sent a letter that we just talked about a few weeks ago requesting that we do allow our businesses to reopen in our community. To date, we have had no response. I believe our governor could safely reduce the restrictions on communities like ours that have shown such a small amount of COVID-19 cases. I watched the news and have noted that states with Democratic governors have restrictions similar to ours. States with Republican governors, however, have retracted many of the restrictions and let more businesses open based on communities within their state. I can only come to one conclusion, that Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham is basing her actions to the great degree on politics. And I'm speaking as a citizen and not as the mayor. She is marching to the orders of the Democratic leadership. And I believe that's the case. And I think it's obvious if you watch the news. And as mayor, I have been very, very nonpartisan in everything I've approached. And I'm not being partisan. I'm saying this as a citizen, not as the mayor. But I believe that this is all. It's come down to where it's the majority. It's majority political. And that's very unfortunate in my opinion.
So what do you think the outcome will be down the road?
I think we're gonna, some of our businesses that might otherwise have started, maybe even today, if had her announcement said that they could open, but those businesses might have had a chance. Some of those businesses now may not have a chance. They may not survive it. I mean, I've run a business too, and you have to have money coming in. There are programs out there that are being helped, but they're not to the extent that they're covering everything. The employees are in better shape than the employer. The employer is the one getting hurt by this. And I think we're going to see a lot of business failures. And what's so sad about it, Bob, is before this coronavirus, and this is nobody's fault. Well, it's somebody's fault. We know whose fault it is. But in any case, our gross receipts that we were collecting at the city were way beyond, every month were not way, but considerably beyond what we had projected. Our economy was booming, quite frankly, and so was our U.S. economy. Now we're almost in a depression, and we have got to get ourselves out of that. And we've got to start, in my opinion, we've got to start very, very quickly, or we're going to stay there and it's going to get worse and worse. And there will be a point that the return is going to take a long, long time.
Richard, if you could have a conversation with the governor today, what would you tell her and what would you ask of her?
I would ask her to have more, to look, instead of looking at the communities like in Gallup and around that area and applying that to all of New Mexico, I would say that she should look more individually at each specific community, or at least each specific county, and see what's going on there. And because the risk is much, much, much less in Otero County than it is up around the northeastern part of the northeastern part of the state, the southeastern part of the state.
Okay. I understand that we have a thing called the CARES Act that's involved to help some business owners. What would you like to tell us about that?
What I'm going to do is just kind of point out some of the stuff that is available out there. And a lot of people, I'm sure, are aware of it, but there's the CARES Act. There are many programs available, but most people are familiar with the two main programs: the Payroll Protection Program, the PPP, and the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, called EIDL. Both programs are being administered by the Small Business Administration, SBA, through our local banks. The Payroll Protection Program, or PPP, is available to small businesses with less than 500 employees, which most of our employers, of course, fit that category. Most businesses in Alamogordo meet it, and first and foremost, it is a loan that can be forgiven if you follow the guidelines. There have been several stipulations, but briefly, you cannot have committed a felony in the past 5 years. You cannot have suspended or been disbarred by any federal agency or are presently in bankruptcy, the United States must be your principal place of residence for all employees of the business. Additionally, there are several certifications and authorizations that you must make. Basically, you have to certify that you, number one, you were in operation on February 15th, 2020, and had employees for whom you paid salaries and payroll taxes or paid independent contractors as reported on their Form 1099 miscellaneous. Current economic uncertainty of this loan request, current economic uncertainty makes this loan request necessary, which, and everybody fits that bill. The
Hey,
funds will be used.
Richard, I have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
What do you think we would be doing with our economy right now had this program not been passed several weeks ago?
If this program hadn't, I think we'd be in much, much worse trouble. I mean, this is, of course, creating a big amount of money to pay back for our government. At some point, we're increasing the government debt, obviously, but
Right.
had we not have done this, we would have already had businesses that had failed. What this has done is I think it's given them a little bit of sustenance to continue on for a while, but a very short while, because the amounts of these loans, and the other problem is, the problem with this loan is the fact that the employer still has to pay the payroll tax. He can cover the expense of the payroll to the employee, but as far as the payroll taxes associated with it, it's not covered in this particular program.
So are you saying that the business owner is still responsible for that employment tax?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Under this program, they are.
Okay. Very good. How can this money be used? How's that distributed?
Well, they have to use it basically for payroll. There's some other programs that allow other things. And I have not worked directly with these. I'll be honest with you. I got this list from my wife, who has much experience in this, and she's helped me with this. But as far as the application of the rules, I really can't tell you that. I've not been, actually handling it. And I'm not practicing. I'm retired.
But your opinion is that it's been a good thing to keep businesses afloat for a while.
I think it's a good thing, but I think more needs to be done.
Okay. What kind of changes do you think we might see in large and small business as this scenario goes forward?
I think we're going to have some real problems in the future, even if the restriction that we know that we're going to have certain restrictions are going to stay in place for a long, long time. I think restaurants are probably going to be hit the hardest. An example would be if you had 1,000 square feet of space before the COVID virus, and now you've got 500 square feet of space. That means you got less tables in there, you have less customers in there, and you're going to have your bottom line is going to be affected a great deal. And you can say that about a lot of businesses.
What have you heard about people working at home?
Many people are working at home. In fact, there was already a trend for that happening, where people had, they had their IT at home, they had their computers at home. But as a result of this, a lot of employers, they sent the IT people out into their employers' homes and set them up so that they could work there. Now they're giving them the option of, after this is over and done with, of staying there. In that situation, what's the name of the company that just did that? Twitter, yes. Twitter just did, they gave their employees the option of staying in their homes or coming back to the office. I think this is going to have a profound effect, maybe not so much on Alamogordo, because we don't have the commercial buildings that we have a lot of businesses in, but I think in some of the larger cities that do have that, they're going to have some vacant space. I mean, I can't see how they won't have, because a lot of people are going to, I think they'll take up their employer on that offer and say, well, yeah, I'm going to stay at home and work from home.
Richard, I was hearing about a man who lives in Austin, Texas, and he works on the 23rd floor of a building there. And the difficulty he was having getting to work because they could only have 2 people in the elevator at a time. So part of his job, he's not able to work from home. But apparently they have a long waiting list or wait time to get on the elevator so you can just get up to your office. I don't think we're going to have that problem in Alamogordo, though.
I don't think we will. That's not too many elevators in Alamogordo.
Right. How do you think business spaces will be affected with this 6-foot rule? Or as I heard the governor yesterday say something about 12 or 18 feet might even be better.
Well, but you can visualize that, like I pointed out a minute ago, visualize a restaurant owner that's got, they've got space for 100 people right now, and the fire marshal is limited it to that. And, if you reduce that to 50 or less, even 50%, the effect on their bottom line is going to be astronomical. They're either going to have to really increase prices on that food to cover the lack of customers that they had before that they don't have now because of that space. They're going to have to increase the price of your food. So there's no other alternative. It's going to go to the bottom. When you go to the bottom with a business, you look at your revenue and you look at your expenses, and what you get at the bottom line is your net profit. And if you can only operate in 50% of the space you were in before, or you are affecting your bottom line without a doubt. And you have some business decisions to make.
Richard, I've been to the Heidi Ho restaurant in Alamogordo, and I was there a couple of nights ago getting takeout like everybody else. And I noticed that they had 26 cars in their parking lot. I got the last parking spot. So I'm assuming that there are going to be some businesses that may seek opportunity or see opportunity with this. Would you agree with that?
I would certainly agree with it.
Do you know of any other kinds of businesses that you think may thrive under this circumstance that we have right now?
Well, obviously, Walmart and Home Depot and Lowe's and those businesses are really, really benefiting from this, and unfortunately to the detriment of our smaller businesses. And I'm not saying that making any insinuation that they're doing a bad thing. It's just that's the circumstances right now. The bigger businesses are the ones making all the money. The smaller businesses are losing their tails.
Okay. So let's talk about some business wisdom that you've picked up over the years. I think it's great that you've had a variety of jobs. You've seen a lot of different situations. You understand the finance part, obviously. What do you think is a key to success of running a good business?
I think probably, and a lot of people aren't going to believe this, but I think the most important thing in a business, and a businessman has to understand, you don't have to be an accountant, but you need to understand a financial statement. And if you don't understand a financial statement, you better have somebody around you, either an outside accountant or hire an accountant to work inside your business. But it is extremely important that you have reliable financial information and to make your business decisions on. I've seen so many businesses get in trouble because they really didn't recognize that they had all these expenses out there, and they thought they made a lot of money, but they really didn't.
How would you rate, Richard, the average business owner that you've worked with as an accountant? How would you rate their knowledge of the understanding of finance?
It's been a while since I've done that. In most cases, quite honestly, they did not understand it, and they needed to be educated on it. And that's the job of the accountant. I mean, you help them understand their financial statements and point out to them when they are having a problem in a certain area that if you can see it. But from an outsider, that's the only way you're going to get an indication of pretty much how the business is doing anyway.
Richard, what I've noticed with friends of mine that have a business, whether it's construction or medical or retail, usually something that requires a license or some kind of expertise to have the business. Most of them do not get any formal education in business. Have you found that to be true?
That's true. It is.
So, Richard, if a young person was out there watching this right now, and let's say they were a plumber, a licensed plumber, would you advise them to take some classes to learn more about finance and business?
I can't imagine a plumber doing that, but yes, I would advise him to do that.
Well,
I
if
certainly
they
would.
wanted to, if they wanted to start their own business, their own plumbing business.
Right. No, I think most definitely they should do that.
Okay.
And
Which
they're available. I mean, there's courses that and in Alamogordo, we have New Mexico State University up on the hill there. And I mean, like I said, I taught accounting classes up there in basic accounting, and the basic accounting course would be very, very helpful to someone that's thinking about going into business, or if they feel uncomfortable with their understanding of their business.
do you think they need to have an accounting degree or just take a few classes with a basic understanding?
No, they don't have to have an accounting. You don't have to have an accounting degree to be a businessman or woman. No.
All right. If you have an in-house bookkeeper, how can you tell me a little bit about some checks and balances, how you might set that up with people that work for somebody that are helping them with an owner? If they work for an owner that's they're helping them with their finances, tell me a little bit about what you've seen with checks and balances and what happens when you do that and what happens when you don't do that in a business.
Well, usually if you don't do it and don't do it like on a monthly basis at the end of the year when tax time comes, or you need a financial statement for your bank, if you've not been keeping up with it, you've got a real problem. Typically, if you have an accountant, it's their responsibility. Well, that's not their responsibility. It's their responsibility if you tell them that what you want. If you want a monthly financial statement or a 6-month financial statement, then so that they can see where they're at. Then that's what most accountants do, is they provide the financial information and then give guidance. And I'm not an expert on every industry out there, but I have got some experience on some, and just about every business, there are certain characteristics that every business out there has. And then that being that they need to know where they're at financially, because you can't operate at a loss unless you've got a really good banking relationship and the banker's willing to continue giving you money on your business loan. You're going to be out of business if you don't watch that bottom line.
If you're going to hire an in-house bookkeeper, what kind of qualifications and experience do you look for?
Someone that has some accounting background, maybe an associated degree in accounting, or at a minimum experience with another company, a larger company maybe, in a position where they would actually understand the financial statements, what they were looking at when they looked at a balance sheet or an income statement, a statement of changes in financial position, so they knew exactly what they were looking at and relaying to their employer.
Okay. In your dealings, Richard, with different businesses, have you come across any that have been embezzled? And if so, what did they not do that they should have?
I want to say I know of some embezzlements, but I can't think of any that when I was practicing that were any of my clients. That there may have been, but I can't think. That was a long time ago. But I think to protect assets from embezzlement, you have to have controls in place. And I know a lot of businesses, it's difficult if you're using a cash register. It's very difficult sometimes to keep track of how much cash goes in that thing and how much there should be at the end of the day when it's counted. That's probably the hardest. But I've not been involved in it. But as many checks and balances as you can have, that's what I would recommend. And being very careful with the employees you hire and that are handling cash and have availability to your checking account. Make sure they're of good moral turpitude and character.
In a small business, sometimes you don't have a lot of employees. So would it be okay from an accounting standpoint to have the same employee that opens the mail also make the deposits of the checks that came in the mail?
Well, in a perfect world, it would be better to have 2 people, but practically in a small business in Alamogordo, that's not practical. The person that opens it is going to also handle the checks. Or I mean, the person that receives the mail, it's going to handle the checks, and in all likelihood, may be the one to post the check and prepare the deposit slip for the bank that day.
Okay. Recently, I heard the statement, if it's not making you money, don't buy it. Tell me about that.
Well, that's it. Let me tell you what I've seen, and there'll be people get mad at me that are listening, and I'm going to use a building, and I was one, I'm going to use a building contractor as an example. But building contractors like to have really nice, power strokes. They like to have the diesel motors and all the things all the whistles and bells on their trucks, and they spend a lot of money, and in most all cases they finance it. And in a business, there are businesses that can do that, and don't get me wrong, but in some of the smaller businesses in Alamogordo, they probably would have done better instead of spending $60,000 or $70,000 for a truck, maybe spending $30,000 for a used truck, and it would have done the same thing. And by doing that, they would be saving a lot of cash and or save a lot of payments on loans in the future. And the thing is maybe things are going really well right then, but you need to have something set aside. And a good example would be coronavirus, COVID-19. The people that had money set aside are the ones that will come back. The others, some of those will not. But if it doesn't help your bottom line and you don't need it, then you probably shouldn't buy it. You look at those. You need to look at those decisions and very carefully.
Somebody told me one time, don't get behind on your taxes.
Whoever told you that was giving you very good advice.
Tell me why.
I have seen, I have had clients that have had trouble that way. If it's real easy when your gross receipts tax is due to delay making the payment or an estimated tax payment on your income taxes. But people that have done that, they wind at the end of the year, it's going to catch up with you at some point, and you're going to have to pay those taxes. And the penalties now are pretty much atrocious. If you don't pay your gross receipts taxes, I don't know what the percentage is, but I know you pay a hefty penalty for that. And I advise, it's not an area where it's one of the big areas where I've seen more businesses fail because they got behind on taxes and they had the IRS or the Taxation and Revenue New Mexico on them because they didn't, for example, on a house, and the numbers can get big on the sale of a house. You may have a $25,000 bill to Taxation and Revenue for that house. If you don't pay it and they catch you, you're in trouble. That's a tough nut to crack when you got to come up with 25 grand real quick. And if you've done it more than one time, it can really add up.
Okay, thank you. So tell me about credit scores. I hear a lot about those.
Credit scores are very important. You've seen apps out there to help you improve your credit scores. That's one of the first things your financial institution will look at when you make application for a business loan. And not only will that determine whether or not you may get the loan, but it also will determine the rate of interest that you may pay on that loan. It's extremely important if you're in business to keep your credit score high, your entire family score, really.
Okay, the entire family.
It could be, and well, your spouse for sure.
Okay. Tell me your thoughts on credit cards.
I've had a lot of experience with credit cards, good and bad, and I've learned the hard way in some cases. Credit cards, it's real easy to get a pretty good hefty balance on them, and it's real easy to not make a payment or to do not pay it off. And the fees on those things, in my opinion, now are atrocious. You can pay 20% on an outstanding balance on a credit card and more. If you need money, I mean, the credit cards are fine if you're going to pay on a monthly basis. But if you need money to buy something, or you're not going to be able to pay it back, you'd be much better off to have a line of credit, a business line of credit with your financial institution, whereby you could take a draw on that. And I guarantee you the interest rate will be much lower than it will be on the credit card.
Can you tell me a different option where you could get some money other than a credit card? If that's not ideal, what are some more viable options?
You could go to your local bank and get a line of credit. As I said, you could apply for a small business loan, SBA loan, if you qualify for that. There's quite a few avenues out there now for business loans. I say now, there was before, that's going to be a little tougher probably now after the situation we're in.
Sometimes I'm not clear, Richard, on a line of credit. Can you explain a little bit about how that works?
You go to your banker and maybe you want a $50,000 line of credit, but you don't need the $50,000 right then, and you don't want to pay interest on it and have it in your bank account while you don't need it, and you draw as you need it and you pay interest on it as you draw it. And there's an arrangement. There's restrictions as to how much you can't take, $100 at a time out, but that's all worked out between you and your banker. But that's a way to go, and that way you're not paying interest on money that you really don't need.
Okay. I wanted to let everybody know real quick, Richard, that if anybody has any questions, you can use the chat function of Zoom, or you can text me at 430-0548. Richard, when is the proper time to form a relationship with a banker?
Before you open your business. I think that's critical. And you may not need it then. You may have money to start the business that you inherited, but at some point, do it before you're in trouble and have 3 or 4 credit cards that you're paying 20% interest on. Do it before that for certain.
Okay. Do you think it would be okay to go and talk to a banker even if you were just thinking about opening a business, or should you wait until you actually need the money?
Well, I would probably go early just to know what part of my business plan would be, to know how much I can expect from that banker. Again, let them check my credit scores, and find out if I'm eligible for a $50,000 loan or a $250,000 loan. I would want to know that, because that would help me in the decision of opening the business, that the capital that I needed to do that.
What are your thoughts on debit cards?
A business debit card is okay. No, I'm sorry. A personal debit card is okay. A business debit card is not as good, because what happens is you don't have the same protections if it's a business card that you have if it's an individual. And so debit cards for business, I don't recommend that.
Okay. I'm assuming that you have had some successful business owners as clients when you had your accounting firm.
I had a lot of successful clients.
Okay. Can you tell me, Richard, some of the common characteristics you would see with these people, both from the business side, but just about how they conducted themselves personally?
In many cases, it depended on the business. That's a tough one. I don't know.
Well, let me ask it a different way. Do you think that honesty and integrity was a common characteristic with those people?
In probably 99%, yes, that's true. I think that's important.
Do you think people are more likely to do business with you if you have that characteristic?
Oh, absolutely. I believe that.
Okay. What are some of the characteristics you saw with people that weren't successful?
In most cases, it wasn't based on the economy. It was based on their business activities, the way they ran their business. They spent too much money personally, and they didn't keep their business well groomed. I'll put it that way. And I've seen a lot of people fail because of that. And others that they're frustrated because it's a tough nut when you're to crack, when you're working 12, 15 hours a day and you're not making any money. And I've seen businesses in that situation, and they're anticipating making money, and some finally do. They do crack the nut, and they move on and they become very successful. Others don't make it. And I've really seen more successful that I've seen in my practice when I was practicing way more successful businesses than failed businesses.
Were you the reason?
Uh, Partially, I believe, yes. I mean, that I will have to say that.
Okay.
But for certain, it was the characteristics that you've described in that business person, and that they're the ones that came up with the idea, and the ones that do it are the ones that are responsible for the business. Accountant is just a helper. Right? We're like one of their employees, a good and hopefully a good employee, and we're helping them with their business and helping them develop it.
Richard, let's suppose that a person has a successful business and at the end of the year they have some cash that they can spend and they decide they want to do some investing of that money. Tell me some of your theories on investing.
In this economy, that's a tough one. I personally, my wife and I have invested in real estate. We've done quite a bit of that, and that's generally worked out well. I don't really know that at my level right now, and I'm retired. I'm a mayor, not a CPA. I don't think I could advise people on that, Bob. I really don't. I just know what we do, and we've done okay with real estate.
So I would like to know why you invest in real estate versus stock market or other types of investments.
I guess I can tell you that. One thing, it's hands-on. I mean, I can go over and kick the bricks if it's a rental house, and I have a lot more control over that than I do in the stock market. The stock market, I have absolutely no control over. And other investments I do have control over.
Do you think you have to be a CPA to participate in real estate investing?
No, absolutely not. No, absolutely not. There's
So
a lot of people smarter than me that aren't CPAs, believe me.
So the average
they invest in real estate.
Okay. So there's a large number of people that could invest in real estate successfully, even if they don't have a CPA background.
Oh, I think absolutely.
Okay. Great. Somebody just sent in a question, Richard. They would like to know how much of a decrease there is in the gross receipts right now for the city.
For our budget, between the effect of there's several little things. For the most part, I'm going to say between 20 and 25%. And we're already looking at that and knowing that that's probably going to have to be cut some more. What we have is we've got a budget situation where people had to be laid off. Some of the jobs that were not considered essential, those people were laid off. There's a freeze on hiring in everywhere, but I think fire and police. But I'm going to say it's between 20 and 25% on the budget, and that's been a couple of weeks ago when we had our budget hearings, and it's probably more than that now, I would guess. But you have to understand, our primary source of income in the general, we have the general fund and we have the enterprise funds. Now, water sewer funds, those funds that we're not having a big problem because that's funds where we're getting paid for, hopefully. But the general fund is primarily New Mexico gross receipts tax, and that's where our police and police, fire, all of the things that you see in the community, other than the water, sewer, and some of that, is out of the general fund pretty much. And that's the one that's getting hurt.
Richard, what are some things that you really like about living in Alamogordo?
Holy cow. I've lived here a long, long time, and there's a lot of things. I love the outdoors. I love being able to go up on West Side Road on a motorcycle or on ATV. I love being able to camp in the mountains. I love the people of Alamogordo. I think I've been not a lot of places, but enough places to know that the people in Alamogordo are generally and typically friendlier, I think, than people in the larger cities. Traffic, I can't stand driving in Albuquerque. I wouldn't move there, or I visit my son in Houston, and Houston is a nightmare to drive. But I've lived in Alamogordo so long, I can't imagine living anyplace else. I've been to quite a few places, but I've never, ever seen a place that has even come close to convincing me that I need to move somewhere else. Alamogordo is where I'll die. My mom, my mother, my father, my grandfather are buried here, and I will also be.
Okay. Richard, I just had a question sent in. It says, what do you recommend faith communities do?
I'm sorry, what?
What do you recommend that church or faith communities do? The governor is keeping us at 10% occupancy, and retail stores are at 25%. Do you believe this is an infringement on the First Amendment?
Okay, I'm going to back. This is going to be not the mayor speaking. This is going to be Richard Boss, citizen of the country and of Alamogordo. I believe it's a definite infringement. I understand why it's done that way, but I can't understand why they can't work out a way to allow more people to be in the congregation. And you know, we're protecting other people by not getting sick. There's no question, and I understand the theory behind that. If a person gets sick there and goes out and makes somebody else sick, then that's infringing upon their rights. But you know, I really believe, and I think we'll find out, because I'm sure there's going to be some litigation on this matter, but it'll be probably too late. But that it may never happen again. But I think we've had an infringement on our rights. I think there's been, in some instances, I think there's been Gestapo tactics, really, when you go out and find somebody and tell them to report what their neighbor's doing and all of that. It's like, you know, like Nazi Germany. That's just my opinion. And that's my personal opinion. That's not my opinion. I'm not speaking as mayor, because I have no right to do that as mayor.
Okay. Richard, would you consider your life a success?
Absolutely, a great success. I've got a wife, a loving wife. I've got grandchildren. I'm very close to my children and all my grandchildren. We have 2 great grandchildren, very young. One's barely 7 months old, and that I see every day, and we have a very good relationship even at that tender age. And yeah, life is good. So
I noticed that you didn't mention money. What you mentioned was family.
Well, that's the family is much more important than the money, although the money is important too. But we're not. I'm not going to give you my financial, Bob, but we are. My wife is still working, and we do okay. But that is not the most important thing in life, for sure. For some people right now, I'm sure it seems that way, unfortunately, but that's been brought on by the situation we're in. When I will tell you, unfortunate for us, we have not been affected by it to the degree that a lot of the businesses have. My wife's business was considered one of the essential businesses, so she was able to stay open. So we've not really been down and seen what it's like to not know, how am I gonna buy groceries for my kids today because I don't have a paycheck? We've not experienced that. I can only imagine.
But at this point in your life, you think family is more important than money?
Well, absolutely. By leaps and bounds, yes, without a doubt.
Okay, so another question right now is, would you rather have more time or more money?
More time. For sure, more time.
Why is that?
More time and better knees. That's
better knees.
That's my only wish.
Okay, all right. When you're gone, what would you like your legacy to be?
The thing I worry about most is how my children and my grandchildren and my great-grandchildren and my wife see me, and I want them to always think of me as a good person and a person that loved them and that they love dearly. And I mean, I'm bringing tears to my eyes now, even thinking about I have a fantastic family, and that's by far, at my age, everything else is infinitesimal compared to the importance of the family that's around you. Well, I mean, it's fortunate that I don't have to think of the money situation a lot, but I guarantee you that that's way down on the list. That the number one on top of the list is family.
Richard, do you think when you were in your late 30s, maybe early 40s, that you would have had the same opinion?
Probably not. In fairness, probably not. Family was still very important, but at that time, so was establishing a business and a lot more energy going into it. It's easy now to do that because I don't have the demands that I had back then. And when you're starting a business, no matter whether it's an accountant or whether you're a plumber or whatever it may be, it's tough. I mean, and it affects your family. And unfortunately, being mayor does not affect me. It does to some degree, but it doesn't affect my time with the family all that much. We did have to we have to delay things sometimes. Like my wife had a birthday party for me last night instead of on the 12th, which was my birthday, and that's a little bit of disruption like that. But very rarely am I affected by my employment as mayor. I mean.
Okay. So with you having told us that your life has been a success, if you could turn the clock back to say when you were 30, what would you do differently knowing what you know now?
Holy cow. Probably a lot of things I can't think of. If I had time to think about it, I'm sure I could come up with some, but I can't really think of anything that I would have done differently. And I know they're out there, I just can't, it's not coming to my mind. So it must not be that important.
Okay. What do you enjoy most about being the mayor?
Probably, I love my community, but I also love our military. And I love going to Holloman Air Force Base. My wife and I have an opportunity to go out there to the graduation of the airmen. And I have a very good relationship with Colonel Campo, and we have a relationship with the family. I enjoy that aspect of it. And you know, in my position, I'm not the operating person of our community. That is the city manager that's responsible for that. I'm kind of the face of the city. I don't make any decisions by myself. If I make a decision, I have to have 3 other commissioners before it can happen. I have to have a majority. It's not like I can make decisions on my own. But that's what I enjoy the most, is that and kind of having an opportunity to be out in the public. And but I really enjoy the ceremonies out of Holloman Air Force Base. I really do, because I respect our military so much.
What do you like the least about being the mayor?
Now that's a tough one. Times like this, where I guess where we're trying to decide how to move forward in our community, knowing that we're going backwards. We've been going forward for so long, and now we're going backward as far as collecting gross receipts taxes, which is going to have a drastic effect on us. And that's what comes to mind.
Okay. Was being the mayor, once you became the mayor, was it like you thought it was going to be before you became the mayor?
No, there's a few things that you do that I hadn't counted on. It's a little tougher than I thought.
So what things have you found that were tougher than you thought that it would be?
Some of the things like dealing with this and I don't know, I thought, can't think of anything specific. I can't really think of that, Bob. I can't think of anything, Bob. I have to say that for the most part, I've enjoyed being mayor, and I really, the reason I'm doing it is not because I want to be mayor, because I'm going to be real honest with you here. I guess the thing I hate the most about it is not being able to go to the golf course, and I can't do that because I can go periodically, but not like I did when I was retired before I became mayor. But that's probably what I dislike the most. But I am. It's worth the sacrifice. I think I owe it to my community, and that's basically why I'm doing it. I mean, I've enjoyed this community. My family has enjoyed this community, and I'm trying to give back something to the community.
Okay. I know that our high school is going to have some kind of graduation ceremony, not the typical one, but there are going to be a lot of kids graduating in the next few days. What advice would you give these young people that are just finishing high school?
I would advise all of them, and not all of them, I mean, they don't have to do it to be successful, but I think I would advise all of them to go ahead and continue on and try to get additional education beyond high school, because typically the more education you have in this country, the better off you're going to do. That's not always the case. It's certainly not. That's certainly, but in most cases, it's almost a guarantee. If you go get a quality education, you will be able to find gainful employment.
What would you advise them about work ethic?
I would advise them to respect their employer. And I mean, there's certain demands that employees rightfully make, but if an employer gives you a job, I think you should appreciate that. I think you should help that business become, if not successful at that time, make it successful or make it more successful. I think that's your obligation as an employee.
Richard, we're getting close to the end. I wanted to know if you have anything else you'd like to say.
Not really.
Okay.
If there's no more questions out there, no, I can't think of anything. Yes, I would like to say one other thing. I want to thank Brittany you can't see her, but she's here with me with the Chamber of Commerce. And I want to thank Michelle. And our Chamber of Commerce is awesome. We've got a phenomenal relationship with the Chamber, and in different things that we do, activities that we put on. But the Chamber is always there, and I think this is an awesome thing too. This what we're doing right now for our community, to have an opportunity to do this. But you guys are awesome. I really appreciate that. I want to thank you, Bob, for doing this and taking the time out of your schedule to try to help our people in our community. It's a great program.
Well, thank you. Well, Richard, we're going to wrap this up for today. I want to thank you for being the mayor, because I know that you probably don't get a lot of thank yous for that. And it's a very difficult job, especially right now. I want you to know that I believe everybody in town is pulling for you and the city commission to get through this difficult time, which we will, and hopefully get things restored back like they were before, because I agree with your comment earlier. Alamogordo was really booming until a couple of months ago. But I feel like if we all work together, we can make that happen again. So
we will. We have to make it happen again.
We do. So thank you for your efforts with that. Thank you to your wife, Kim, because I know she goes to a lot of those functions with you. And I don't know how many you do in a month before the COVID anyway, but a lot. I know you spend a lot of your time doing things representing the city, and we appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for watching and listening. We will have another on the menu next week, and I look forward to talking to you then. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob.